Meeesh.
Meeesh.
With 3 E's.
I know.
I love that, right?
2 E's. Two E's just wasn't available.
Just 2 E's. Oh, is that why? Or 2 E's just wasn't enough. So welcome to my next guest as part of this amazing series of episodes now, I think, Leading London, powered by Vorboss. And I have Michelle Andrew, who's with me in the wonderful Vorboss studio, who's the founder and managing director of Meeesh with 3 E's. So there's a story there already. Welcome to the Leadership Enigma. How are you?
Thanks, Adam. I am wonderful. I'm very glad to be here. Vorboss obviously has a very special place in my heart, being that I actually used to work here. So
yeah, you're ex-Vorboss, right?
Being asked to come and be on the podcast feels like a real honor.
Oh, that's good. Well, if this was the exit interview, why did you leave Vorboss? You don't have to answer that.
Honestly, it was working too well. So I'm really good when it's chaos, and when it's corporate structure and working well, then it's time for me to go.
Let me just ask you about the name Meeesh with 3 E's. What's that about?
So I am affectionately called Meeesh by some of my friends,
okay.
And I don't know if 2 E's was taken, but I was actually bought the domain meee.sh by someone here, actually at Vorboss,
right?
As a parting gift.
That's
for my
kind of
own
cool.
website, which I then, little did he know that I then decided to make that my business domain name, and then I launched my consulting business shortly after. So it came a little bit of an inside joke in the sense that not only is it Meeesh with 3 E's, but Unlimited Limited being very much my own consulting journey has been me kind of unleashing myself a little bit.
So there's a bit of a maverick in there.
Staying in a corporate structure where I do realize I'm quite, I get quite stuck. I prefer when things are a bit more messy.
Why?
I don't know if that's just the kind of brain that I have. I need to be solving a lot of different kinds of problems at once.
Yeah.
I've always had ADHD. It's kind of been a
Well,
defining
you're in the right
feature.
room because I'm chronic ADHD.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, is there a neurodiversity piece here? Because I got diagnosed late after my daughter was diagnosed. Tell me a little bit about being neurodiverse, what that's done for you, or the opportunities it's opened up.
So I
told you we'd find a theme. That's how this works.
It's definitely not something that I spoke a lot about in my earlier career. So I was diagnosed as a teenager.
Okay.
Which meant, a lot of trial and error with different kinds of meds, and then obviously going through the teenage years being heavily medicated on things that they give you.
How was that?
It's not ideal, and there's like a stigma at that time as well. So not something my parents really loved to allow either. Okay. But it's something that friends have always kind of known. But in terms of working in corporate environments and my career journey, it's not something I've always openly talked about. But I think more recently that's become much more normalized, and then it is something that I am now quite quick to say. Like, one of my greatest strengths is that I see patterns between business problems. Yes. I see
it's your superpower.
And across industries. Like, I think where some people get really stuck looking at just one industry and thinking this is the problem in this industry. Yeah. Well, actually, the problem that you have, in banking is the same as you have in property, is the same that you have in telecoms. It's enterprise problems. It's how do you grow and not stay stagnant? How do you innovate? How do you create change in like very rigid corporate structures when people really just want to do their job and go home, and trying to like engage that change from the inside can be quite difficult. But what I've realized is from the outside coming in, I can have a lot more impact, and then be able to work with structures and corporations that have the resources to make change, but might not be able to internally kind of mobilize the resources in the right way.
What was the biggest challenge for you growing up with ADHD?
Not knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Well, I'm still living that one, right? You and I alike.
Still don't know.
Okay.
I feel like very much I still kind of wake up and make it up every day, which I've got. I think one of my clients is going to come on this podcast shortly, which I feel like is not a thing I should always admit to clients that I work with. But it's just there's a lot of different passions, there's a lot of interests, and I think I've never been someone who could be really pigeonholed, which also really frustrates kind of conventional society in a lot of ways of, you should go to school, you should get married, you should whatever it should look like. I'm someone who went to school, got married, got divorced, moved countries again, and then have had really incredible opportunities in my career, because I am someone who's very hardworking and dedicated, but I get frustrated easily, and I like to see change, and I like to be challenged, and you know, boredom doesn't work for me. So very corporate environments I find really dull.
So you're Canadian born, correct?
Yeah.
You said your parents are UK.
Yeah, so my parents actually met in university in Edinburgh and then moved to Canada when they were in their early 20s.
So you have a Canadian passport?
So I've got a Canadian and a British passport. And then I decided to break my mother's heart and move back to the UK when I had the chance in 2017.
Are they still in Canada?
They are.
Whereabouts?
Vancouver.
That's a nice part of the world, right?
It is. It's
so
nice.
Vancouver, London, Vancouver. Oh, London's a pretty good city, isn't it?
London is a world-class city. I love it here. I bought a flat here a couple of years ago, which makes me think I must want to stay.
That's it, putting down roots.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go to this point. A couple of questions. At what point did you become more accepting for yourself of the neurodiversity piece? Was it age-related? Was it less stigma attached to it? Was it a combination?
I think it's been very much a combination of getting older and accepting that this is what I'm like.
And this is who you are.
And this is who I am. It doesn't stop me from being still sometimes frustrated, even with myself, around certain things.
Such as?
Let's see. I can get stuck in indecision. More around my own stuff. I'm a lot better now when it's external, but internally I have a lot of indecision, and I tend to fret about decisions a lot. I'd say I like second guess myself. And
do you catastrophize?
I catastrophize.
So I'm saying that as an ADHDer because I completely empathise with that because I've had to deal with this all my whole life.
And it does mean that I've also gamed out every scenario of how things will go. Which is, I just take up a lot of brain space that I could probably spend towards better things.
And a lot of anxiety,
yeah.
Unneeded anxiety. How do you control that?
I go to yoga a lot, but I find it has to be like power hot yoga so that it's like intense enough to make my brain turn off. Or I exercise. I have to run. I have to do kind of quite a lot of physical activity to get the nervous energy out, which you can probably see me vibrating from across the table.
Listen, I've lived my whole life probably without understanding this until more recently. So I do ask these questions with a huge amount of empathy because I'm still learning and understanding what my superpowers are and what my huge amount of limitations are. And I'm never going to close that gap. But neurodiversity has become much more talked about and much more relevant to bosses and leaders like you in relation to understanding the younger generation and actually how that can be a huge benefit to you. Do you find yourself proactively looking for the neurodiverse or just being aware of it now when you talk to and recruit people potentially? Yeah,
so I'm definitely aware of it. And I mean, the way that I've always been as a manager, as a leader in when I have been in more traditional organizations has been with that sort of empathy first and understanding people are people. And actually they're like the most valuable when they feel seen, understood, heard, rewarded. Sometimes people do need to be told that they've done a good job, more so than others. It just really depends on the person.
There's a demographic thing to this as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think I've always made it my mission to understand people, what your own drivers are, knowing that not everyone's going to be the same, and then kind of tailoring my management style to that. And that's like, I mean, one thing I've always prided myself in is that teams who've worked for me, individuals, teams have always felt like I had their back and that I would, be there as a leader and support. The
reason why I love this podcast is I'm always appreciative to the conversations I have with people. And, we chatted just earlier and I said to you, I'll ask about, the fact that you focus on scales up and private equity and growth. And actually, I'm more interested in the things that you'll talk about you, because there's always what's the human being behind the human doing. You're obviously very, very focused, very, very driven. But you also mentioned imposter syndrome before I think we started recording. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's probably my toxic trait is that I lead with my imposter syndrome, maybe. No.
Okay, well, tell me, what is that? How does that manifest itself for you?
So I am very open with kind of who I am and where I have my doubts about myself.
Right.
So I do know I'm actually very capable and I do deliver, and I'm someone who cares really deeply about companies I work with, their businesses and their outcomes. I've just never, I think it's part of that ADHD things. I've never just felt qualified. I don't know what would make me feel qualified. I've never, I have accolades. I've studied. There's lots of qualifications I've had. jobs and promotions and all kinds of external validation, but like it's an internal feeling of like not being qualified.
Let me ask you this question. You don't have to answer this question, but again, I'm using it as do you sometimes not feel worthy of the success that you get?
Yeah, that's a it's a deep one. Yes, absolutely. I struggle with that. I think I really struggle to take on the good feedback that I get. And I can't believe I'm discussing this openly on a podcast at the moment, but I guess it's worth doing.
No, but I asked that because I understand that. That's something. I'm asking these questions because they're in some ways they're personal to me, and neurodiversity is something a lot of the younger consultants that I work with talk about. And what has been a bit of a motivator for me is people coming out to me saying, hey, you're really open about your neurodiversity, and I didn't think I could be, and maybe I can be. So actually talking about this is really powerful for people, because it's not just straight out of box. You've got the accolades, the expertise, the qualifications, etc. Leader, success, great. There's a very human journey to this. And I remember talking to Gary Ridge, who was for 26 years the CEO and chairman of WD-40, which is a $1 billion globally iconic business. And I said to him, how would you describe 26 years as CEO? He said, it's just my apprenticeship in leadership. So forever learning.
Yeah.
I
think that the type of brain that it sounds like we both have, though, means that we are curious, and it means that you do want to learn, and that you kind of take that responsibility on, probably in a way that others might not. I do sometimes wish and wonder what it would be like to just be able to kind of focus on whatever was in front of me, rather than needing to be things to be a certain way, or for it, it to be a certain, I don't know, time of day or a certain subject, or the right conditions for me to feel like I could properly sit down and, always like get things done.
Yeah.
I wonder what that would be like. I feel
but
like
it is what it is, though, isn't it, for us in many ways? So now, as a founder, as a leader, as a boss, what do you do with all of this experience? How do you now? Who are you now as a leader with all of this experience, and also what you're still dealing with? And by the way, everybody is dealing with challenges, etc. I've never met a leader with whatever CV or qualifications who hasn't had probably a deeply personal conversation with me in relation to, God, it's been tough. Yeah, what's the kind of leader you're becoming or working on?
So I am always trying to lead by example. I think what after leaving Vorboss and going to a job that I thought was the next right thing, and then it being just such a bad fit after having left a company that I absolutely loved, it was this thing, I had kind of chased the carrot, and it completely fell apart. I realized within about 2 weeks it was not the right fit. It was culturally, everything was going to be a bit of a disaster. Then I set up my consulting business as this stopgap to kind of figure out what it was I actually wanted to do next. And then fast forward 2.5 years, and I've got quite a successful consulting business working with some of the biggest asset management firms, and high growth scale up prop tech companies and fintechs kind of across the world. I don't really know. So I'm like, I don't know how I did that.
People by people. So what are these organizations seeing in you? What is it when they come to Michelle, when they come to Meeesh, what are they getting?
I'm a relationships-driven person. I really care about people, and I never burn a bridge. And I do see the links between different kinds of businesses, as I mentioned. So I've sort of inadvertently become very good at spotting really useful business partnerships, figuring out who someone maybe should meet and why, and then helping kind of formulate what that might look like and how you might generate revenue from looking at something in a bit of a different way.
What's the biggest challenge you're seeing for yourself and your clients at the moment? 2025 London world is slightly chaotic. Slightly. Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you're helping clients navigate first?
Well, large corporates in general have slow sales cycles. So if you are a fast-growing company, sometimes an 18-month sales cycle is a long time to have to wait for revenue or to know that you've booked something.
Right.
And then also throw in all the political uncertainty. It means things have just moved a lot slower, and there's a massive level of like mistrust, and also cash is not as loose. So people are being a lot more cautious. Things just take longer. There's a lot more patience needed. And where companies before might have had a little bit more leeway to try something new and fail and that be okay, it just seems like right now the barrier and and like the sort of failure threshold is really low, and no one wants to take a lot of risk.
We're seeing a lot of that risk aversity that goes into,
which is really difficult for really innovative companies, because you
or
need
heavily regulated companies,
exactly,
right?
And you need people to want to take a risk, and so I spend a lot of time trying to energize larger organizations as well as the companies trying to sell into them about like this innovation is what it will do, how it will benefit your processes, looking kind of more holistically at the business and how you actually might benefit from taking this risk, and is it really such a risk, and looking at risks of inaction as well.
What's the last risk you took?
The last risk I took?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm taking risks all the time. I just
do you think this was a risk?
I mean, absolutely, it was a risk. It's a risk for me being a bit vulnerable on this with you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a lot of imposter syndrome being asked to come on here, because knowing Vorboss and the caliber of people and your podcast, that I don't know that I fit in that traditional leadership scope that you might of people you might interview. So there was that
Well,
fear.
I'm going to tell you that you do, because we're having actually a really, really human-centered conversation, and if it feels slightly awkward, that's never designed that way. But I think these are the conversations that really, really connect with people, because there's loads of people going, that's me, I've been dealing with that my whole life, or I have other challenges, and there's strength in the conversation. And also inspiration to the younger generation coming through. So, we could talk about growth, and I could talk about all the accolades that you have, which I can see on the screen in front of me. But the reality is probably this is the most human-centered and connection piece. And we didn't plan this either.
No.
So we literally just met. We get into a room. We just have it. That's why I'm always humbled by this opportunity and this podcast to have a conversation. I'm very grateful to always have a conversation of this nature. What excites you about the future?
I am someone who's an optimist. I think there's some really, really neat innovations happening that are going to make a lot of drudge work that we all have to do. When I think of large corporations, I think of drudge work. Yeah. And that's what
my friend calls them time sucks.
Time sucks.
She says they're going to get rid of all the time sucks.
Yeah. So I'd like to think that the more we're embracing technology for good and taking away the things that just frustrate, we might have a new sort of renaissance of thought and ideas and creativity, and human-centric conversations become
just like
even
this.
Deeper, because we're not so bogged down in the day-to-day. That's a very optimistic look. I realize that it might be set.
I'm really pleased that you've shared that optimism. But here's kind of some final questions: is what legacy do you want to leave as a leader?
So I have always strived to be the kind of leader that I wanted to see.
Right.
So leading with empathy, leading with kindness. I think one of the best things that I ever heard was, people don't remember what you did; they'll remember how you made them feel. Correct. So I'm very aware of how I make people feel, and showing up for people in a different way doesn't necessarily mean I have to be a top-down, dictator type boss to be respected. It's actually I can lead with kindness and get the same result. How
does this conversation feel?
Very uncomfortable, but it's lovely. I feel a bit. I would definitely feel a bit vulnerable. That I was not expecting that.
Well, that's why I think it's always a privilege to have this conversation. So as you said to you challenged, am I the right person for this podcast? Yes. It's about the human-centered leader in everyone.
I made a joke outside. I was like, I'll probably walk in with my imposter syndrome, and that is exactly what I did.
But then that's great, because I think we had a really human conversation off the back of it, because I recognise so much of this, and we put up a front. And I had an experience last week. I did a big keynote in Johannesburg, 250 people. Great. Got off the stage and thought, that can't be me. Well, no, I can't. So it never really goes away. We just manage it in some ways.
Yeah.
And hopefully it helps other people. Let me ask you this kind of final question. What's the best piece of leadership advice you've given or received?
If you mess up, you should fess up. I think normalizing failure and discussing when things have gone wrong is really, really important to do as a leader. It makes you, again, more relatable, more human, and
I love that as a catchphrase. If you mess up, you fess up.
Fess up. I can't say that I made that up. Someone told me that. I think it's it was I want to say it was like a PR agency at one point said it, and I just remember thinking that is brilliant. And I've said it to everyone.
You've heard it here, and we love it, and we're gonna take it with us. Listen, Michelle, really heartfelt, massive thank you for coming in, and I'm super glad you came and we had this conversation as part of this, I think, really special episode of Leading London. So thank you very much. And Vorboss also says thank you for coming back.
My pleasure. Thank you, Adam.
Take care. All right.